Welcome to Office Hours for Curious Ants. Today is Wednesday, July 29th, and today we're here to talk about SEO and what we had for lunch.
It was delicious.
Mine was delicious too. Lavanya, was yours delicious?
Yeah, I had Chick-fil-A.
Oh, I think you might have won.
It's like, oh gosh, I really don't want to love Chick-fil-A, but it's just so good.
My wife is a vegan and she loves Chick-fil-A.
It's like just unnaturally delicious.
It's great. It's great. Well, before we get started, Lavanya has a great question. But before we talk about Lavanya's great question, last week I prompted us that we are going to start today with a success story. It could be something as simple as I finally did something this week, but it might be this is what happened this week. So part of me, I challenged myself to do this too. So part of me wants to go first, but I don't want to like steal thunder. So what do you think? Is someone really itching to go first? I will lead by example if that's what needs to happen here.
I'll go with the flow.
What's that?
Or I can wait, either way.
Okay. Well, if you guys have them, I'd love to hear yours before I go mine. So which of you would like to go first?
Okay. Well, my success story, I guess, is I finally was able to come up with some blog post titles. And I also have some more information on terms and conditions that I thought was interesting. I didn't realize the terms and conditions were a contractual agreement with you and the user. That was one of the things that was in that training I did last week.
Yeah.
And also that was interesting to me was that if you are in Europe and if you do not state that your return policy is 14 days or 30 days, then you have a whole year to return, a whole year and 14 days to return an item. If your return policy was supposed to be 14 days and you did not state that on your site or in your terms and conditions, then you have a whole extra year and 14 days to return an item.
Wow. So if you're doing business as an e-commerce store in Europe, you really need to specify your return policy and terms and conditions.
Yeah.
Or you could get stuck getting stuff that's really old returned to you. Wow. Anything else that you learned at the terms and conditions webinar?
I'm looking at my notes. I didn't want to be long, so I just wrote down a few things, but They also mentioned things that your terms and conditions should say, like it should be identification of your business, the description service, conditions of use, and make sure you state the return policy and exchange and termination, and any info related to the methods of payment. Make sure you put that in your terms and agreements.
Did it mention whether or not sites that are not e-commerce needed to have a terms and conditions?
That's where they said that some sites like blogs or like lawyer sites, you can get away with it, but it's but you might want to still make sure that you have terms and conditions on there just to be on the safe side for in the future.
Okay.
But definitely make sure you have those terms and conditions, especially when you're giving advice through blogs or some type of service or e-commerce.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
That's super helpful. Allie, what's your success story for the week?
So I have like a two-part success story. The first is that I got our login and set up in Google Search Console, which was super enlightening for us because I really found out that the majority of people who are coming to our site from Google are searching specifically for us, which really shows like we need to adjust to get people who don't know about us already to the site. So that was really great. And then because of that, we basically put together a whole team and had a strategy meeting about what our new sort of social media is going to look like. And we have, you know, a basic two-pronged plan, which is one, reaching out to families and reaching out to professionals. We have, you know, ideas for videos for YouTube, for templates and how-tos for Pinterest, blog posts for Pinterest or Facebook, like kind of an attack for all the different social media. And the most exciting thing to come out of this is we are collaborating with local businesses to post how-to videos or helpful videos for families with kids with special needs to help give those local businesses exposure, to have us have exposure in the areas those businesses are in. And then once COVID restrictions are lifted, be able to then host events at those businesses.
Good.
So we had a really great week putting a lot of things together that are like actionable, and now starting to delegate those tasks and proceed with how we're going to make them and then produce them and start posting content.
That is great. Great. I'm intimidated by both your success stories. Mine just seems very anticlimactic after that. Mine was, I'm working with a client and they've got a large development team. So sometimes getting the development team to do anything is like turning the Titanic. It just takes a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of politics, a lot of begging, sometimes bribery, maybe some tears, just to move something. Well, we implemented on their blog Schema for articles and Schema for breadcrumbs. So Schema is one of these ways where you can encode things on the website that is invisible to humans, but helps search engines understand what this is. And if you encode an article in a special way, you're telling Google, hey, here's the article. This is the content of the article, as opposed to here's the navigation, here's this and this, that. Well, not only did Google pick this up super fast, like within a couple days, which is lightning fast from Google, but we could see them start to serve this client up in the Google Discovery Graph, because now Google could read their articles more clearly and understand the difference between a page and an article. And so Google Discovery is the new product from Google. If you've ever done a search from your mobile phone, you look at your phone and underneath the search bar, Google is suggesting articles from websites that it thinks you're interested in.
Oh, that's interesting.
There's no way to optimize for it or rank for it, because Google is saying, I know you and I think you're interested in this article. For instance, I've been learning to play guitar. I get a lot of guitar articles suggested to me. Well, what we're seeing is after putting article markup on their blog, they're serving the blog posts to more people as Google Discovery. So Google is just recommending to people, here's an article we think you're interested in, right off our blog. Before this, Google was not sharing the blog posts. They've had all these blog posts for years, but by encoding them with the article markup, now Google is suggesting these on mobile devices. I've done some data, and Google Discovery doesn't really produce a lot for most clients. However, there's so many articles on this website that even if they got 10% of those served in Google Discovery, that would be a lot of traffic. And again, hey, traffic, you know, it's not an in and of itself. We want traffic that produces a goal, but sometimes more traffic produces more goals. So we're excited about that. That was my success for the week.
It's not anticlimactic.
I think both years were really good. I thought mine's just some technical. You know, the success is more of like getting the development team to move. But once we did, like it was almost instant results. It was pretty great, which is very rare. Well, hey, so Lavanya, you came to us with a question about blogging today.
Right.
Would you like to share your question with us?
Yes. My question, like, you come up with your blog titles, but do you write the blog post before or after your backlinks?
Okay.
Like,
sorry, I interrupted you.
no, I was just gonna say, like, if I write my blog post, then I have to go and look for backlinks. But how will I know what backlinks to look for if I do it before I write my blog post, if that makes sense?
Okay. So are you talking about writing blog posts on your blog or writing your blog posts on other websites?
On my website, like if I come up with blog post titles, and then I want to maybe reference a site that I got some information from. So I guess, when is the best time to look for backlinks, before or after a blog post?
Okay. So backlinking is a huge topic, and we have to make a couple caveats whenever we talk about backlinks. Backlinks are what makes Google a superior search engine. Google uses the links to determine which websites are the better websites. It's not just about the words on the page, it's about what other websites say about you. So we have to do backlinks if we want Google to consider us an authority. For instance, today I did a little quick audit on a website, and great website, they weren't getting any traffic because nobody was linking to them. So Google didn't acknowledge that this was a really authority website because no one was saying this is an authority website by linking to it. So we do need to have links to our site, but we need to understand, because they're so powerful, there are very specific rules on how to generate a backlink. And so let's see if I can find this. There's an article on Curious Ants about this. Let me see if I can find it.
Oh, I jumped ahead before the next step. Is that what I did?
Well, links are important, but let's make sure that when we do links, we do it in a way that doesn't get us in trouble with Google. All right, so I'm going to share my screen just so we can see where this is. So there's an article on how to tell if a link is helpful or not that is worth reading, because not all links are created equal, and some links are not helpful for search ranking, but some can still trend traffic. And on here, there is a link to what's called the Google Link Scheme Guidelines, which is Google's rules on backlinks to a website. In other words, what is a link that they find acceptable, and what is a link for which you potentially could get in trouble with Google. And when I say in trouble with Google, trouble with Google might mean, at the best, they ignore the link to your site. At worst, Google could kick you out of the entire Google index if you don't follow their rules. So we have to understand these rules before we start building links, or we might get ourselves into big trouble. And so it's really worth reading through these to make sure you understand it. Once you understand the rules, you can then go and ask yourself, well, how do links help my website? What makes a link helpful?
So can I go ahead and write the blog post first? I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how backlinks, I guess, really works. So should I be reaching out to whoever owns the site first and say, this is an article or a blog post that I've written that I think will work great with, something that they may have on their site?
Okay.
So if I may, what we're doing for backlinks, because basically the way I understand it is part of getting backlinks is also it's intertwined with increasing your authority ranking. So what we're doing is reaching out to top blogs on topics that we are interested in and requesting to do guest blog posts. And we've gotten already somebody responded and said, hey, this is a topic we're looking to be covered. Is this something you can do? So we're doing that blog post for a blog that already has like 50,000 followers. We'll then backlink to our website since we're the one that wrote it. Is that correct, Dave?
Yeah, so that is one way to get links. So I'm going to share another process with you. Here is, and this is actually, if we followed the order of the game plan, this would be the last step in the game plan. But how to build topically relevant links to your website. And one of the ways to build a topical link is through guest blogging. And so I wrote up a process here on how to do guest blogging, how to find them, and within these are some tips on doing this. So, Lavanya, I think there's a couple of assumptions here that I think you're making that I want to make sure we are clear about. So, if you're publishing something on your blog, that needs to stay on your blog and should not go published on other websites too.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Google does not want to serve up two websites with the same content. I didn't understand. Oop, my home device has interrupted us.
My Echo does that too sometimes.
She's listening when we talk about her. We're talking about links, so But so just so you know, like if you write and publish something on your website, a possible tactic to get backlinks is to say, hey, other website, I wrote about this topic too. If you think it's good, would your readers want to read it and would you want to link to it? That's a way to get links. That, I think, would be a very hard way to get links because you'd really have to work hard to convince someone to link to you.
Build a relationship.
Yeah, that's a better way to do it, to build a relationship. So what you could do is say, hey, blog, I've written about this topic before. Here's a couple examples. I would like to write about this topic for your site too. Would you like something unique for your website? And then it resembles more of the guest blogging strategy, where you're going to a website and kind of like Ali was saying, you are pitching them that you'd be willing to write. Well, why would they accept you? Well, clearly you're going to have to show that you have some authority or knowledge on the space. So having some stuff on your blog could be a way to prove that you know what you're talking about, right? And so that putting it on your blog first and then writing something unique for someone else.
Oh, okay.
After you show them that you know what you're talking about, they read your blog, they say, oh, this is really good. So that would be the other way to do it. But if you want to write for other websites to link to you, you probably need to write, I'm sure I shouldn't say probably, you do need to write unique for them and don't just replicate what you've already written on your site. Now, there are some advanced techniques that are ways to do that. I don't necessarily want to get into that at this point. I think it's just a lot easier just to approach it. Every time you write on another website, make sure it's unique for that website.
Okay, so I can still write blogs for my website, but at the same time, I can reach out to other bloggers and ask if I can write something unique for their website in order to link back to my website.
Yes. Yes. I think the answer to your question is that's probably the better way to do this. Start with blogging on your site. Build up credibility while you do it, and then you can get opportunities on other websites. So one of the processes is how to write a blog post for best SEO results. So this is just kind of the guideline of what makes a good blog post and how to do it. Notice article schema, like we talked about, is already in there. So, and if you're, Lavanya, you're using the Yoast SEO plugin, then you already have automatically added article schema on your website. So you're ahead of the game. And that's just where I'd start here with writing blog posts on your site. And I did that for a couple reasons. One, to build credibility, so you can go to other people and say, see, I know what I'm talking about. Wouldn't you like me to write for you too? But also, the blog posts on your website are going to bring in relevant traffic too.
So as I write blog posts on my site, it's okay for me to still reference links to other sites, just not as long as they're not linking back to the same site as linking back to me.
Yes, exactly.
That's not considered backlinking, is it? To link out to other sites?
Yeah, I think that's where I got confused at, because I was thinking more, because when I started out with affiliate marketing, where I had to add links in a blog. So I guess that's where I got kind of confused when we was talking about backlinks. But yeah, I think it's supposed to be the other way around. I reach out to them to link back to me.
Mm-hmm.
Some people make an argument that linking out to other authoritative sites, from your website builds your authority. So some people attempt to add links to other websites from their blog. So for instance, if you're talking about SEO and you link out to search engine land as a blog, some would say that adds credibility. I don't believe it does. I don't think it hurts, but I don't think it does. I mean, I would just say you can link out where it makes sense, but don't think that by linking out to an authoritative website that somehow that means you get authority because you link to an authority site. Mm-hmm. If it's useful to your users that they see the article that you're talking about, for instance, so like one content strategy might be, I'm going to comment on other bloggers' content. I'm going to pick a fight and argue about something. And to do that, I'm going to link to them so that my readers can read their article and see what I'm talking about. When you do that, that's totally legit. I, just as a stylistic thing, like to make sure that the links open in new tabs, which you can do in WordPress very easily by a little checkbox. But that way, it's just so they're on my blog, they go to the other blog, they don't lose where they were on my blog, because that's really where I want them to be. Yeah. Like, I don't want them to forget about my blog. And if it opens in a new tab, then they close that tab and they're still on my blog. Yeah. And rather than stay on my blog. But,
and we're working kind of on something similar too, is some outbound links, but to like sources that are above us. So like not linking out to peer businesses, but above. So like the kind of business we do is run by the, the BACB. So we can link to that to show like, these are the ethical guidelines that cover everyone, or these are the strategies that cover everyone. Mm-hmm. So you can see that we're following that. You can see we're in line with that, rather than being like, oh, here's this other person that doesn't work for us. Look with it. Like, we don't want to do that. We want to show like, look how great we are. And we're following all of this stuff. Like, and then we're also increasing a lot of our internal links too, to try to kind of direct traffic a little bit more on the page into the direction we want it to go. Because we do have a pretty high bounce rate. So we're trying to really stop that.
Well, so yeah, exactly. And those internal links are also ranking factors.
Yeah.
To your page. So if you're linking to a service page from a blog post, that you help your blog, your service page rank better. And that's kind of what you really want to show up in the search results. Mm-hmm. But blogging and bounce rates is an interesting conversation, because a blog is always going to have a high bounce rate.
Yeah.
It's always going to.
We have high bounce rates in general, even when it's not a blog post.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's because even now what I'm doing is like we have someone who does all our social media posting. So I had her log basically everything she posted in like June, July, and I'm actually comparing the exact dates and times in Google Analytics to like, did this actually produce a result? Like, and that's what we're kind of now reevaluating, like, okay, every time we post something, what's the goal of this post? Is it to increase brand awareness or increase traffic flow to the website? Because I think she got sort of misled because like Facebook and Instagram have their own like analytic where they'll be like, oh, look at all this engagement.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, but what, you know, and it's like, just because they viewed it doesn't really do anything. Like we want people who are sharing, who are commenting, who are clicking on it, following through, like doing something other than just being like, oh, look, there's this post now. And it like can be a little misleading, I think, their engagement statistics.
Well, and I'm going to defend Anita a little bit. Not that you're assaulting Anita, but remember Anita last week was talking about how brand awareness is a legitimate value of social media.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right. So sometimes someone sees an article on social media and they're aware of your company, and that just puts a little reminder in the back of their head. And this kind of goes back to like old school marketing, old school advertising, where it's like, it takes 3 to 5 exposures to a company to even remember it.
Yeah. And even with us, like
some of that can be really valuable for that effect. The problem is it's really hard to measure.
Right. And like something like we do employee spotlight posts. And so she's like, oh, well, we had huge engagement and huge views on employee spotlight. I'm like, yeah, but how many of those people are new? Because if it's just our own employees looking at it, then it's of internal value because it's a motivation tool, but it's not of value to the site or the company as a whole as far as driving new traffic or new brand awareness. Because that's one of our biggest hiccups is people that already know us are searching for us. Like we want to expand to people who don't know us.
Yep. Yeah. And I watch that carefully because what could happen, I have a client, they have a lot of people who work for them and they have a page for every person who works for them. Mm-hmm. What sometimes happens is those people get in the press. I was reading the newspaper a couple Sundays ago and I'm just reading it, and one of my clients' employees is mentioned in the Wall Street Journal. I'm like, I emailed my client right away. Why didn't you tell me this person was going to be featured in the Wall Street Journal? He didn't know. And we didn't get a link, darn it. But everybody searched for his name. And everybody searched for his name, found his page on our website, and a few people contacted him for services.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can be a payoff. Like if you're, in your case, you have counselors. So those people might be out speaking at groups. They may be at a PTA speaking. You know, they could be out there kind of drumming up their own business. And if they are successful, you want to know that, right? And you want to be able to let people find them on your website.
Yeah.
Right.
And we signed up.
That could be a good source of leads.
Also. And so one of the things I learned on like another source is to create almost like a Haro worksheet with like a copy and paste so that you can respond super quickly and be like, yes, we could provide a quote on this topic. These are our credentials, please, you know, yada, yada, to try to get more, you know, not just backlinks, but just even mentions and different kinds of resources.
Yeah. Yep.
It's just so much information.
It is. There's a lot to SEO. There's a lot of things going on. And people will sometimes think, oh, I can pay someone a couple $100 a day to do this. Like, yeah, whatever. You know, no, there's a lot of work that's going on. But Lavanya, does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, I just thought I was getting ahead by writing the blog post first, but turns out I'm not. It's okay to write the blog post first and then reach out to other bloggers to see if I can write something on their site. Now, if I do that, how would I get traffic back to my site if I guess blog post on somebody else's site?
That's a great question. So in the process for guest blogging, it outlines a suggestion, which is we want to try to get a link from their website to ours when we're doing the guest blog post. Now, the first couple times we do this, the best we can do is say, Lavanya, this is Lavanya's website. She wrote for us, and we're going to link to the homepage. Hey, that's fine. We'll take it. But as we build relationships with these people, we might be able to get a link straight to a service page, or we might be able to do some sort of partnership where we work on a report together or something, and we promote. But it's all about building. It's using these not just to get a link and walk away, but using these to build relationships with people and remember that they are people.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the hard part, right? Because there are a lot of websites who would be happy to take your content, but they'll take content from any old fool who will do it. And obviously, if they're accepting it from you and anybody else, then how good of the content is that? Now, I'm not diminishing that. Sometimes that's just where you got to get started in order to prove to people that you can write and you're knowledgeable. So like I view this as building a portfolio on your blog that you are knowledgeable about your topic, and then building a portfolio on other websites that you can then pitch. And what you do is you pitch up. You know, you start with the lower end, and then the higher ones are going to be like, we want to see 5 articles that you've written for other websites. Well, when you're starting off, that's really tough. But if you've been doing it for a few months, you might have that. And now you can get a link from a website that a few people can get links because everybody else is just throwing it on websites that anybody can publish on. So you really have to invest the time to do it, but it can really pay off. And that's, you know, that's kind of how you do it. You just got to keep pressing, build a portfolio, trade up, build relationships, you know, write for a website. Say, you'd be willing to write 5 articles for a website, right? They might appreciate that, you know, and in appreciating that, wow, you know, if they learn to trust you, great. And then you can get away. One other thing you can do is, as you build a relationship with people, is maybe you reference your articles on your site as a source for an article. For instance, like I have one of my most popular articles on my website is about how to use the Screaming Frog tool to build internal links within your website. This is a little SEO tool that I'm a big fan of. It's a little technical, but it's a great little tool. Screaming Frog.
Wow.
I love the name. Now you know where I get Reliable Acorn and Curious Ants. But that's a real popular article on my site. Well, I can write on other websites and say, oh, and by the way, you can use Screaming Frog to build internal links and link to my blog post. Because I'm citing myself as a source. Now, in academia, you can't cite yourself as a source, right? That's an improper broach of academic problem.
But you can, in your article that you're writing for someone else, but you can reference like to get, I guess, more information on how to use it and link it to your site.
Well, like for instance, if I was doing an article on, like maybe I write, okay, so I have the article on Screaming Frog internal links. Maybe on another website, I write an article about underrated SEO tactics. One underrated SEO tactic is this. Another underrated SEO tactic is that. A third underrated SEO tactic is building internal links. There's a really easy way you can build internal links. You use Screaming Frog and you find them. Number 4 is this. Well, there, I just kind of worked it in. It's natural. It's not self-promotional because nobody wants to publish an advertisement on their website. It's just natural. Not everybody's going to let you do that, but if you're building relationships and they know they can trust you and you're not just using them, then you might be able to do something like that. Now you've got a link to an article that is a really productive article.
Okay.
May I do something today? I don't want to lay shame on anybody. Of course, by saying that, does that mean I am? I hope not. I notice when we're skipping around a lot in the process, and I appreciate that the process is complicated, but I want to make sure you both are aware that, okay, not only do I list the steps in order here, right? So topical link building, one of the ways to do topical link building is guest blogging. But before you do that, there's a lot of other things that you need to be doing.
Well,
right?
I went back over the when I was going through this, I went back and I was going through your steps, and that's when I got into the I didn't realize I skipped the Google Data Solutions, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize I skipped that. I think I asked you a question about it, but then I figured it out.
Okay.
But I was doing keyword research and trying to find keywords. That's when I was coming up with blog topics. And then I was like, okay, well, I got the blog topics. So should I write this first?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I need to worry about getting backlinks first?
Okay.
And that's kind of how it went.
Yeah, please don't take it. I think your question is great. And I'm glad you're there. And there's, in one sense, go ahead. Like, it's having a blog post is going to help you on your website. My fear would be that you don't have other things together first before you do that. And for instance, like, what if, and I know you use WordPress, so your website's very easily read by Google, but if you didn't have a WordPress site and you weren't sure Google could even read your site, putting a blog post on your website might not even help you if you didn't do the technical audit and review to make sure Google can even read your website, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's, but here's a thing that I want to make sure you both are aware of, and I just added this video. There is this spreadsheet I created. If all you have to do is click on it, make a copy. This is a little spreadsheet that can help you know where you are in the process to make sure you're not missing anything and to help you know what to do next. So let's say today we did this. Well, now, you know, we don't have to do this until January 29th because we need to repeat this in 6 months. But it's also a friendly reminder. Oh, don't forget on January 29th that you should do this again. I'm designed this to help you have a place to keep track of all the steps of the process. It does a couple things. Number one, make sure you don't overlook something. Two, sometimes we have to answer for the work we've done, whether that's our boss or our clients. This could be one place that you could say, here's what I've done for you recently, and you have a record of it to show them. But like, for instance, there's 2 of these tasks are things you should probably do every week. And if what I like to do is I just sort these, and I know the things on the top are the things I need to do first. I don't have to worry about this thing anymore until January 29th. So I could kind of keep that out of mind. But I know the next thing I need to do is to set up and verify my Google Analytics goals. And so I just keep doing the things, you know, I might put notes in here. There's links straight to the process if I need to get to it. I put this together because I'm hoping it helps you keep track of all the moving pieces so that you don't overlook something and you don't let the cart get ahead of the horse and end up doing something that isn't in its most effective order. So I'm offering this to you as a hopeful help, but you're both smart and capable individuals who know what's going on. So use it if you don't have to use it if you don't want to. But
where is that located? Because
that is located. So let me show the screen again.
When I would use that, I just forgot where I left off at.
Yeah.
And I went back. I was like, I didn't do this.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And that's what this is for. So when you log in to Curious Ants, you end up on a how do I get started page. The URL will be membership account.
mhm.
There's a link that says begin your SEO campaign here. And this takes you to the how to do search engine optimization page. Here's the steps underneath the video. This video explains how to use this sheet. So you just have to click on that sheet and you can create a copy of the sheet, which means only you get to see the sheet, right? No one else gets to see it because you made your own copy of it.
Okay.
And I just hope that helps make sure you don't overlook something. So for instance, like blogging, really valuable. Like I wish everyone was blogging more often. If you only do one thing to help your SEO, blogging will help your SEO. But if you don't have your goals set up and measured, you can blog, but is it helping your SEO? You don't know because you're not measuring a goal. So make sure your goals are set up. To have your goals set up, you first need to set up Google Analytics, and things like that. So this is just making sure that before you do the really exciting SEO things like blogging and optimizing content, you're not setting yourself up for thinking you're successful because you've been blogging for 6 months and then find out the blog posts haven't been generating new customers because you didn't set up goals to measure whether there are new customers coming in or not. That's a really disappointing place to be in. And I say this as someone who's done this before. You just jump right in, you start doing, and next thing you know, is it working? The client asks, hey, that's great. We're writing 10 blog posts a month. That's exciting. Is it getting me more business? But we don't know because we didn't do the earlier stuff, which is to make sure we're tracking whether we're getting customers or not. So I'm trying to make this easy because going to this page with the list of processes is not always the easiest because then you have to remember. But the spreadsheet here will help you remember. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I need to get rolling. Any last minute questions before we tie up for this week?
I don't think so.
Lavanya, are you all set on blogging and guest blogging and all that?
Yes, I'm gonna go back through the list again to make sure I didn't skip anything else. But yeah, I think I'm okay.
Okay. I bet you most of the things in that list, Lavanya, you're like already taken care of. But yeah, go ahead and check and see if there's anything that you've missed.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for your time today.
Thank you.
It's good to see you and good to hear what you had for lunch. I hope you both have dinner that's even better.
Oh gosh. All right.
All
Thanks,
right.
guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.